Am I in the picture?
Yep.
Oh, all right.
Hello, Dick Graham. How are you today?
I'm fine, as far as my age and medical history permits.
Okay, good. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions about your American dream and what your idea of that is and stuff like that, and questions like that. Okay.
I'm a little hard of hearing, so you'll have to speak a little louder and clearly.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. So, do you think that the idea of the American dream is possible for all people in this country?
Everybody has their own dream. So everybody wants to dream, they can dream.
Mm-hmm.
Question is, to what extent they can fulfill their dream. Not everybody has an equal chance to fulfill their dream. It depends upon what resources you can bring to the process, what your family can bring to it, what your community can bring to it, and maybe your own ingenuity can bring to it.
So you're saying some people living in a more in a more poor society might have different dreams than somebody living in a wealthier society.
Don't you think so?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So we are all starting out equal.
Mm-hmm. Well, what is your idea of the American dream?
Well, that depends on what stage of my life we're dealing with. You're talking history now. My life's almost over.
Well, how has it changed over these years? I mean, like, what was it, when you were young and...
That's a good question. When one is, let's say, 15 or 16,
mm-hmm.
one can dream almost anything, but one has a limited experience of what obstacles to expect. And one has a limited experience of what one's own capabilities are and resources.
What do you like about living in America?
Well, it's my native country, and I'm comfortable here, and I have my friends and acquaintances here, and I'm familiar with how to do things and how to get things done, and so if I move to, plus I speak the language. The language is not necessarily a limitation because half the population of the world speaks some form of English, but it is my native language and I'm very attached to it. I think in English, I plan in English, I communicate in English, and I chit-chat and bullshit in English, and I read a lot of books in English, and so that's something I don't give up easily, and in addition to which the English spoken in many parts of the world are different dialect and reflect a different culture. I'm an American, so I have an American culture, which means I have the non-material things of life, institutions, customs, art, lifestyle, and as well as material culture. And so I would have to, if I went to, let's say, I could afford to, let's say I decided I really want to live in Tuscany or in the Côte d'Azur. Well, I would have to learn the language enough to get by, and I would have to expend resources to to settle there. For example, I have excellent insurance coverage. Medicare, which is my primary insurance company, and I have a supplemental insurance, and I have I understand the American medical system to the extent that we have a system, and so I can survive under this. I don't know the system in Italy. I don't know the system in Spain, so I don't really know how long I could survive. So there's decisions I have to make. I know I could survive in Canada very well, as here, perhaps better, but it's cold up there.
Yeah, it definitely is. So you're saying you kind of feel attached to this country, and it definitely feels like a home for you?
Yes. I've chosen a region of the country which I find has a mild climate. And if I live long enough, there will be climate changes that are not going to be very pleasant in many parts of the world. Sea levels will increase, and so a lot of the coastal areas we now have either our financial centers, our commerce centers, our communication centers in coastal regions, a lot of them will be underwater. I probably will not live long enough to see that, fortunately, but that's the way it looks. And there's also large areas of the world that are going to be in drought.
Yeah.
It's already happening. Large areas of the southwest of the United States, large areas of Africa that have been jungle and very fertile or very verdant are going to be increasingly drought-stricken and turned to desert. A lot of the Middle East. Water is already a major shortage in the Middle East. It may become more valuable than gasoline or oil in the future, and it's really limited. Unless desalinization makes enough progress, it's going to be economical to support large population centers. We're going to be, that's going to be the life's waters, the water of life, as we call some forms of alcohol. Akavit, for example, is a Scandinavian form of alcohol. Water of life, it means. And whiskey has the same word, same root. So they won't be the water of life anymore. Water will be the water of life. So if I live long enough, I have to adopt my dreams, my aspirations, and the lifestyle I prefer to the realities of what resources are available to my community and to my nation and to the human race.
So, yeah, the dreams are definitely going to be changing over the next era.
I think by dint of necessity, yes.
What do you not like about living in America?
What do I?
What do you not like about living in America?
Well, I think we have failed to solve too many problems, or we put them off.
Like the global warming problem you just mentioned?
Like the global warming problem, like the fact that we have more people in prison prisons in the United States than they do in China or in Russia.
Mhm.
It's shocking. Why do we have so many people in prison or ex-cons coming out who have left prison and therefore have their dreams cut entirely short?
Mhm.
Well, one thing is we have silly laws in some cases. We put people in jail, people not much older than you. We put them in jail for long terms, for many decades in some cases. Why? Because they were taken, because a policeman accosted them and found some small amount of a controlled substance like marijuana. And since marijuana is widely used, particularly by young people, as a recreational drug, the way that our parents or grandparents used wine or hard liquor, the result is that we're imprisoning people for what amounts to a minor misdemeanor in my grandfather's day.
That's a really good point. I never thought about it like that. That you know, it might be just an evolved way of recreation, maybe.
Yeah.
Who were some of your idols growing up in America?
Huh. Well, a lot of the idols that one has as a very young person are those that are product of the industry called the entertainment industry provides us with, which is a certain amount, in the case for women, of glamour and on the one hand glamour and sophistication, and on the other hand innocence and girl next door kind of beauty. We always have a tension between opposites in terms of the cultural icons that we accept, movie stars and athletes. Increasingly, athletics have become tied in, somehow interlocked with the entertainment industry, so that we spend more and more time watching, not participating, watching sports events, the way that the Romans watched gladiators in the Colosseum or in arenas around the Roman world. And they sort of had a bloodlust. They sort of enjoyed seeing blood and gore. And I think I'm talking about the average viewer in Rome. And culture dies hard. That's a form of culture that we haven't quite given up. So we tend to be attracted to sports which are rather violent and can be harmful, do a lot of harm to athletes and participants. I don't understand why, because there are so many sports that are good sports, very athletic, like tennis, that rarely it's hard to think how it would harm somebody to be a superb tennis player. Unless you try and start out, say, at the age of 85, it probably wouldn't work. Probably would not be too helpful. But if you start young, you start at 15 or 16, you could be a ace tennis player by the time you're 25. Have a whole career ahead of you. And if you don't want a career in athletics, it will be a lifetime source of pleasure and healthy activity.
So Go ahead.
Well, there's so many, we have so many different sports today that were not available 2 or 3 generations ago. Like sailing, for example. I happen to be very fond of sailing.
Mm.
And more people, even people of modest means, can own their own boat.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to own the boat, you can rent a boat. You can learn to sail. If you're more interested in motors, you can learn to have a power boat and how to maintain your own boat. It's very rewarding to a lot of people. Gardening, for people who have a more, a little bit quieter life,
Mm-hmm.
particularly people more advanced age, and a lot of people get a lot of satisfaction out of gardening and good exercise as well.
Yeah, but in some of those sports, there's not the team element.
The team element. The team element is somewhat ambiguous because we talk it up, we say in our work, such a work life, a professional life, that we value team effort and team accomplishment, but sometimes the competition in those fields is enormous.
Mm-hmm.
People are competing for recognition, for salary, for money, for the attention of the opposite sex, for
Mm-hmm.
for power. It's probably true in most institutions that you are apt to work in. Some less, some more. It depends on how competition is controlled and how teamwork is rewarded. I've worked in the university setting. Academic work represents a tension between those two elements: teamwork, cooperation, and competition. So if your buddy in the next office, or somebody you went through graduate school with, earns a Nobel Prize, he's been a more successful competitor than somebody else. But he's achieved something that's should be something that is a contribution to his civilization and to health or knowledge or something. So it can be valuable, but it has to be a product of both teamwork and competition.
I agree, actually. I think that the Nobel Prize in some people's mind, it might not be as valuable to them as all the fame and fortune that athletes get, and I think that's I think.
Yeah, but we live in a strange world. A Nobel Prize winner may win something that has a monetary value, say, of $100,000, which is chump change to an athlete who's making several $1 million a year under
Mm-hmm.
contract. A physician who is a brilliant surgeon, diagnostician, and has a fabulous career and achievements in medicine, may be making $250,000 a year if he's very, very successful.
Mm-hmm.
An athlete who simply is knocking other people's blocks off and injuring them with life injuries to their heads,
Yeah.
he may be making millions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a strange world that we prize athletes for the period of their career. The athletes do have a shorter career span than surgeons or artists or most other professions.
Well, let me ask you this: do you believe in the hard work ethic that is detailed in most people's American dream and what brought up this country? But do you think that an athlete should be making as much money or more money than somebody who works very hard at their job, and like a physician per se that went to school for many years and all that?
Well, that's a good question. What do you think?
Yeah, I do. I think it's kind of backwards that they're making more, and the physician or doctor or scientist or whatever is making less, just because that I think in this country hard work should definitely be rewarded.
Yeah.
That kind of makes people strive for intuition and just for new ideas.
Yes. Yes, it's very strange. For example, entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Entertainment industry has extremes across the spectrum, the extremes of rewards. But financially, a very small number of people make a great deal of money. And they may work hard for brief periods, but they don't, the rest of their life is pretty much a matter of enjoying it, not working too hard at all. They don't take a lot. For most movie careers, it doesn't take a lot of education. It does take a lot of good looks sometimes to really. That's less true today than it used to be. But for one thing, there's something. The live theater is much more widespread and community-based than it used to be. So there's a lot more of it, a lot more opportunity in it, but it doesn't pay very well. All of these little theater groups that we're familiar with, you probably know several in your community. They don't pay anything. A lot of it's purely voluntary.
Yeah.
And even people who have worked professionally in theater, very few of them can earn a living and raise a family that's above the poverty line from working full time in it. So they have to have a second career, or as they say, a night job or a day job in addition to the theater. There are probably more actors and actresses waiting tables in New York than there are in the entire entertainment industry.
Like, as you mentioned, those people who work in the smaller live theater shows, they need to work a lot harder in order to attain their dream than somebody in the big Hollywood entertainment kind of spectrum.
Yes, and you wonder, like most people who become very successful, success tends to insulate you from the real world and from negative reactions to your work. So people don't tell a successful person in business, in finance, in politics, in entertainment, in theater, or for that matter in music or art. They tend to be, the more successful they are, the more they are surrounded by people who tell them they're great. So they don't have enough checks on reality. Pretty soon they think they really are great, for some of them. And so it's power and success can be kind of a trap if you're not careful.
Well, like, how have you had successes in your life? What areas do you think you've done really well in?
That's a good question because I had many different careers.
Hmm.
When I was in high school, I worked in a print shop, printing shop, and but I was what we used to call a printer's devil. That is a trainee,
Mm.
And when I graduated from high school, I went to work in auto factories in Detroit.
Hmm.
For a couple of years. That got me through 2 years of college. And when I left, last year I was in college, I worked with automated information equipment, what were called punch card machines.
Mm.
And that was just the beginning of the revolution of computers.
Oh.
So when I started graduate school, I graduated into the computer industry. And that was sort of the coming thing.
Mm.
And it was fun, sort of interesting, very competitive.
Oh. As it is today.
Hmm?
It is today as well.
Yeah, it is today, but on a much bigger scale.
Yeah.
And failures are very widespread in private industry, in government, in nonprofit industry, in entertainment. The failures in the information industry, I'm talking about computers and all of the related electronic modes of communication today. Failures are very widespread and some of them are very serious. When the information age was beginning, we had some very simple ways of simple applications. I grew up in Detroit and was familiar with the auto industry. One of the major auto manufacturers had a problem with inventory control before they had computers. So one of their first applications of the new computer techniques was to control their inventory so they'd know what stock they had. Well, one of the first things they found out was when they counted the stock in the bins where it was stored and compared it to what was on the computer printouts, they didn't agree. And when somebody visited one of the loading docks one night and found people were robbing them blind by ripping off their stock and selling it on the black market. So it has a very useful, immediate, profitable ways of improving your bottom line in business. And in government, same thing's true. But today the problems are so enormous that we try to solve that the slightest mistake in designing the computer system can have enormous consequences and cost a great deal of money. And what we find is that most of these big, complicated systems that we try to automate have all sorts of problems that were never considered before.
Mm-hmm.
How much longer do you want to discuss this?
Is it alright if I ask you one or two more questions?
Go ahead.
Okay.
It's your nickel.
Okay. How have your struggles shaped you in your life?
How hard?
How have your struggles shaped you in your life?
Well, I worked my way through high school, through college,
Mhm.
through graduate school, and so I was pretty tired by the time I got through all that.
Understandably.
So there are ways that you pay besides just in terms of fatigue.
Mm.
You pay in terms of lost opportunities to do other things, to have a family, or to travel, or to become a tennis star, or tennis recreational opportunity. A lot of things that I wanted to do when I was in my 20s, I never got around to doing. And now that I'm in my 80s, I find I don't have either the resources, the energy, or the stamina to do them. I would have loved, when I was my 20s and 30s, I would have loved to have visited Machu Picchu in Peru. But I know now that I'm never going to do it. So I will content myself to what I can read about it and pictures.
So you're saying that you kind of you struggle with just some of the things that you were unable to achieve.
And too many things I wanted to achieve, yes.
Well, my last question is, when you think, when I say the American dream, what comes to mind for you?
There is no. The American dream
Mm-hmm.
is what is it? There are 300 million
Mm-hmm.
American dreams. There is no one American dream. And frankly, it's better that way as far as I'm concerned. I would rather
Mm-hmm.
have 300 million people pursuing their own dreams rather than having somebody tell us what the dream is, and we're all going to work for that dream.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree with that completely, but what about like the dream that the forefathers of this country had, like for freedom and for equality and things like that?
Not everybody had that dream. Some people had other dreams. People who had the dream of equality among our founding fathers had a great deal of problems with the fact that some of them were slave owners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. What about like just in general though? What? So you're saying that you don't think that you don't really have. Well, let me restate this. You don't really have like. What I'm trying to say is, like, what really would you, if you were a founding father, what would you want to make this country? What would you want this country to be like for everybody else? Would you want it to be like, have everybody, give them their own chance to be what they want to be? Would you want really to focus on equality or freedom, or what traits, I guess I'm trying to say?
Well, the problem was there was never one American dream.
Mm-hmm.
There were people who belonged to a different region, a different economic system,
Mm-hmm.
and different cultural life, religious life, and all of them had different goals and dreams. Some of them had things in common with lawyers, might have something in common with other lawyers. Preachers might have something in common with other preachers, or priests with other priests. but there was no single, and one of the, no single dream, as you put it.
Mhm.
In fact, the country all had to eventually go to war because they couldn't agree on a single dream.
Yeah.
And they killed 600,000 people in search of that dream.
Mhm. So you're saying that the idea of civilization is not to be focused on one thing, but to work together and all to achieve like a peace with each other, and all of us achieving our own goals, working together, things like that. Would that?
Well, yeah, we work together. Some people work better by themselves, actually. People who write novels probably write, poetry probably do better.
But indirectly, they're other people are helping them. Their electrician, they're help keeps their electricity going. The plumber, keeps their their sewage pipes going. So, like the country is really, I mean, just civilization in general needs other people to survive. At least the way that the humans are living now. So, would you say that your dream would be for everybody to achieve their own goals, but have like peace along with that?
Well, most people just want to survive, which means that they have very simple demands to lead a fulfilled life. They want to have useful work.
Mhm.
They want to have a decent returns from the work, or decent earning, and they want to have. Most of us want to have some family life, and we want to participate in the community in various ways. We may want to seek some adventure in various ways at various times of our life. The kind of adventure that you may want at your age is not the kind of adventure I may want at my age. And so it's a moving target for each of us anyway, let alone for all of us together.
Well, that's, I think that I agree with a lot of the things you said, and I really enjoyed interviewing you. So
Good.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Yes. By the way, O'Day.
Yeah.
You know, who is O'Day that you have on your chest? The name on your chest. Who is he?
I don't believe he was a human. He was just O'Day is just a name. I don't know what it means, but.
Well, it's a family or a clan in Ireland called Day or O'Day.
Oh.
And there's a castle O'Day. I visited the castle O'Day.
Huh.
It's just a little old stone tower. It's not very big. And probably maybe be more than one clan for all I know.
Huh.
But it's.
Well, I didn't know that I knew our school had Irish roots, but I didn't know that it was actually a group of people in Ireland.
Uh,
Huh.